Hey everybody, and welcome back to the Camber Karting podcast. Camber Karting, where we are the only ones who suggest that 12 tires are better than 4 when in the banking. So
Three
this
wide,
week,
boys.
yeah, going 3 wide. So this
Or
week we're doing a
4 if
little
you're
bit of
Talladega.
unfiltered goodness. I say unfiltered goodness. That sounds really wrong, I guess, but
That's how
whatever.
I like my coffee in the morning.
Ouch.
I'm gonna stay out of this one.
Yeah, you can already tell we're on it. So this week we're just going to talk about. I think the basic theme is some short track racing, but this is going to be the unfiltered. We haven't talked in a long time, and we're just going to go for it. So let's go.
All right, boys. Let's talk the Madhouse, Bowman Gray Stadium. Thoughts? What do you guys think? I want your honest opinion of a quarter-mile track, flat as a pancake, built around a football field.
I feel like Bowman Gray is like, it has this just raw spirit of aggression and hate and madness, because I feel like there's so many damn fights at that track.
It is the track that woke up and chose violence.
It reminds me. It's like a bunch of people went to a high school football game and a race broke out, and then a fight broke out.
Well, I have pads when you have fenders.
Or as they said, what was it? Simple Plan's album back in the day: no pads, no helmets, just balls.
Yeah, it's man, I can't wait. I live like 30 minutes from Bowman Gray now. I cannot wait to go back over there. Man, like when the local news is just like the basically a race rundown. Like, so yeah, everything interesting that happened this weekend happened at that track. So, welcome to Winston-Salem News. Man, dude, you don't think a modified can flip on its own during qualifying on a flat track?
I've done it in iRacing, but
And apparently somebody did it in real life, because yeah, I saw the underside of a modified for a good 5 seconds.
man.
Wow, iRacing is so realistic.
Yeah, I know, right? Good on them for getting their damage model up.
Oh man. Yeah, I think my spotter failed me on that. Chris.
It's like you're oh wait, was that me? Did I do that? Yeah. Right. I may have been getting chips at the time. I don't know.
It was clearly my spotter's fault. He said I was clear low. Oops.
I was clear low, except there was a wall there. He forgot to mention that one part. Us drivers are really picky.
Yeah. I mean, well, I thought you only meant the movable things. You know, I figured
okay.
you'd know where everything immovable would be. It's always there.
Well, technically, everything can be movable. It's just what amount of force does it take to move it?
How much torque do you have?
Yes.
Yes.
All right, so let's talk about because I think we've all had a bit of short track either in our background or that we've paid attention to as we've been coming up. So let's just talk about how tracks that we've been to and how that experience has kind of shaped our racing lives.
Oh, geez.
Andrew, you want to go first?
Yeah, the most recent short track race I went to was the ARCA race at Lucas Oil last summer.
Nice.
It wasn't a huge field, so honestly, wasn't the best race could have gone to. But still, it was fun. You had to see the drivers, really have to lift off the gas and find speed just rolling through the center of the corner, hitting the white lines at LOR. I'm sure you guys both know.
Yeah.
Third place car spun himself out near the end of the race. So that was exciting. And then I think it was Chandler Smith who won the race.
My stepfather-in-law gets to go drive a Rusty Wallace NASCAR experience car there soon.
Oh, nice.
Are
Yeah,
they
I
as
think
fast as the ARCA cars?
I have no idea. All I know is I didn't get invited to drive it, but he did.
I think so. I mean, they are old Cup cars, but I'm pretty sure they've got a. If they don't have a solid restrictor plate on them, I'm pretty sure that they've got like an undersized motor, like the Cup Series runs like a 358. I'm sure that they're running probably like a crate, like a 305 or something.
Yeah, I think they run Ilmore crate motors.
Okay. Oh wow. Okay. So then they'd have to run a restrictor. I don't know. Your stepdad, he was the one with the Buick Grand National, right?
So no, this is my. Okay, so this would be my stepfather-in-law.
I thought
stepdad.
My bad. I misheard.
No. This is the guy who has no motorsports experience whatsoever. I don't even think he's ever been to any kind of a race. Has no passion to. And my mother-in-law got him this for Christmas, and I'm like, okay, cool.
Yeah, I think my parents did like the Richard Petty ride-along experience. I know those cars are full power because they've got actual race car drivers driving them, but I don't know about the actual do it yourself or not. I mean, not do it yourself, but like just drive yourself experience. I don't know. You'd have to ask John because didn't John do it?
Yeah, I think John did that. He did it at Kentucky.
Yeah.
Yeah, my stepfather-in-law said he was going to practice on 465, and I'm like, well, I'll look for you in the local headlines. Massive pile up on 465 resembles last lap crash at Daytona.
One in jail for instigating the wreck.
The only words he said to the public were, I'm all jacked up on Mountain Dew.
It's like Perp's last words were, I just want to rattle his cage open. I'm going to wreck him.
But yeah, IRP or LORP or whatever it decides to be called next week.
P. Lori something.
But that's a cool place to go to. I've never seen any. I've never been to the oval track there. I've been to the drag strip a couple times. So, Chris, you have quite a short track background too.
Oh boy, and how! Hickory Motor Speedway, Newton, Conover, North Carolina, the birthplace of the NASCAR stars, and the track that gets shut down whenever there's a funeral nearby because it's right next to the cemetery. That was an interesting turn here. Like when I had the GPS, it was like turn here. I'm like, pretty sure this is the wrong spot. Oh no, there's the racetrack. Okay.
So if you run over one of the walls, are you if you're one of the it's your time to go. Do you reserve a plot there so you just wreck your car right where you need to be and it saves a bunch of time and money?
Nah, see, unfortunately, there's like a grove of trees in between. So at the very least, you'll help them with their groundskeeping.
Okay.
But yeah, no. So that's a cool track. That's I can tell you that's the first short track. That's the only short track my father has ever been to. Because I took him because the first times I went, I was going by myself. And I took Dad, and this guy, and I think it's in the vintage street stock. So this was basically a 68 Mustang body on a well-used frame. And this thing grenades its motor going down into turn one. And some guy we're sitting up in the grandstands, and I can only imagine he was the spotter, jumps down off from the top of the grandstands and grabs this other dude by the collar and says, "You owe me $10,000 for that busted motor." And I swear to you, this dude turns around, looks him dead in the eye, and says, "Ain't my fault. I ain't build the thing. I just put the parts in it." Oh man, Oh man. It's also a place where some kid in a 48 car flipped a veteran driver down the backstretch for the win, right? And so this kid pulls around, and the little victory lane plot is right adjacent to the front stretch, and while he's getting out of his car and celebrating, this dude hops out. The guy who got flipped hops out of his car in the backstretch, climbs over the backstretch wall, and pulls a Clint Boyer and sprints straight across the infield. And the first person that gets to him right as he's about to climb the pit road wall to go crash Victory Lane is
Burt Reynolds.
the pit reporter. He just shoves a microphone in his face. Doesn't really even try to stop him. Just puts a microphone in his face. And the only things I could understand this guy saying were, "He's a no driving punk. Ain't got no respect. I get him what he needs." And I turned and looked at my dad, and he was laughing so hard he was almost crying.
I'm gonna beat his ass.
I'm getting what he needs. Yeah, he's about to be like Boris said. But yeah, that track, late models at that track is one of the best shows on earth. So
Yeah.
there, Anderson Speedway in Indiana with the Kenyan midgets.
Yeah, I need to go there. I need to go to Winchester.
Yeah. All those high bank tracks, man, especially with non-downforce cars, and you get to see them wiggle and whatnot, man. But Corey, I'll let you delve into the dirt racing side of things, because that's an atmosphere all its own.
So my short track education did not start on the dirt technically. So here in Indiana, our closest track it's been through a few name changes and a few different owners. But when I first went, I think it was Chase Speedway. Might have been Benton County Speedway. And it was asphalt. And that was my first
time. Benton County used to be asphalt?
Yeah, it was asphalt for a while. At some point, they thought they were going to draw some big money crowds, and it was asphalt for a while. And I remember going to see like one of the regular Saturday night shows there with my stepdad at the time, the one who had that old Buick that was amazing. So he's like, "We're going to go see racing." Like, oh, and I'm like 4 years old. Sweet. And he's got this Buick that's got a built stock car engine in it that somebody had that he bought off them because they weren't going to use it because they ended up getting out of racing. So this thing was amazing. Oh my gosh. Yeah. So I think it was a small block Chevy engine, and it roared. But yeah, we went. It was asphalt. My first time there, and I seen the Saturday night show. That was pretty cool. And then we went back like a week or two later, and he's like, "It's going to be a special show." I'm like, "Okay." And he's like, "You're going to see something you've never seen before. You remember the stock cars?" I'm like, "Yeah." He's like, "Now you're going to see cars without fenders." I'm like, "Okay." Being from Indiana, cars without fenders are kind of a thing here. But yeah, we went, and it turns out, I think it was USAC midgets on the asphalt. And that was a real treat, and I got like really hooked at that point. And I think that was, I believe, a young Tony Stewart was running that night. So pre-IndyCar days for Tony Stewart even. So that was really cool. But yeah, shortly after that, we kept going, but shortly after that, not even like a year, they changed it back to dirt, because it started out as a dirt track, then went asphalt, then back to dirt. And that was my first dirt track experience. And I think it was like a year after that, like right when they changed it back to dirt, we moved, and we ended up moving to the middle of Benton County. So I was within literally, I could hear on Saturday nights when we didn't go to the races, from the bedroom, I could hear the announcer. So that was pretty cool. And yeah, that kind of started my love of racing. And at that point, I knew two things. I knew the Indy 500, and I knew dirt track racing. And yeah, we went every Saturday night for a long time. And then there was the kart track in Boswell. I mean, not even far from that, there was a dirt oval, quarter mile. And I think I went there probably like 4 or 5 years after my first dirt race, I went to the kart track and got me hooked, and then I started there. So yeah, my career started on the dirt, and I raced there for 10 years at least. And I went back and ran a couple years ago. I went back and ran a dirt race at one of my old tracks just for fun. So I know a lot about dirt racing. Unfortunately, all the ins and outs of it, the bad side and the really fun side.
Yeah, it's an atmosphere, like, I mean, short track racing in general, but particularly dirt racing. I mean, that's one of those. If you leave dirty, you know you've had a good night, right? So it's 'cause my first dirt race was, honestly, my first dirt race might have been Outlaw Karts at Millbridge.
Oh yeah.
Which is, that's the hot place right now for all the up and coming, young NASCAR drivers, or all the parents who want their kids to get up in a NASCAR down in the Carolinas. They either take them to GoPro to run karts there, or run Outlaw Karts at Millbridge.
Yeah, I know Kyle Busch and Clint Boyer take their kids to Millbridge, and Kevin Harvick. I think Jimmy Johnson too. They take their kids to GoPro.
Yeah,
I think
Harvick's a National Series winner.
Jeez.
I think Kyle Larson actually still runs a Outlaw Kart at Millbridge from time to time.
Yeah, I know.
Yeah.
Christian, when you and I went there for spring break a couple of years ago, Max McLaughlin was running during the Wednesday night race.
Right, because the old lady was like, "Yeah, that's Max McLaughlin." I was like, "I have no idea who that is," which was like, "Oh wow, I must be getting old." But of course, now I know who he is. He's pretty promising driver. I think his dad Mike was a Winston Cup chassis builder at one point.
Yeah, you come across some interesting up and comers on the dirt track. I think the two biggest areas at one point in time were probably North Carolina and Indiana for dirt track racing. Like, the reason we got into it here on the kart side of things was, I think we sat down and tried to figure out which tracks were closest, because we were on a really, pretty tight budget. And we figured out there were like 5 or 6 tracks within an hour and a half of our house to go like dirt kart racing. Versus one asphalt track that was 2 hours. So, that was pretty cool. Unfortunately, that number shrunk, but yeah, it was really cool when I was in it, seeing all the carryover, especially from down in the Carolinas, because in dirt kart racing, the first dirt karts were built, I think, in Indiana. But the big industry now, at least now, is based almost exclusively in North Carolina.
Yep.
So see all the carryover, and see down in the Carolinas, they were all running those Maxxis tires, the Maxis. We used to jokingly call them the Maxis. And up here in Indiana, we were running these dang bricks, these Burris, the brick tires.
Ew.
Like, I kid you not, we called in, this has been a long time ago, I don't remember which chassis manufacturer it was, but we called in to get some setup numbers, because you always want to get some kind of baseline setup, and if you can get a hold of somebody who drives for the factory or something, getting their setup books, you're generally having a good day. And most places were pretty forthcoming with the basic numbers, considering you bought their chassis. And we called and talked to somebody, and they said, okay, what kind of track you run on? Told them quarter mile black dirt. Not clay, nothing. It was black farming dirt, so not even hard pack stuff. He's like, "Ooh, what kind of tires you running?" I said, "Oh, we're running Burris." And he's like, "Can't help you.
You're screwed.
Like,
you are screwed.
You don't have any numbers." He's like, and he flat out said, he's like, "Nah, call me back when you're running on real clay and on real tires."
Yeah, I was about to say the best dirt in the country is down here in the Carolinas. That red dirt. Because they export it. They export it out to Indiana.
I think
for that reason.
Well, no, I'm sorry. None of the tracks I've been on in this area, like, we've had red dirt tracks, but they refuse to pay the premium for Carolina red dirt. They buy the Kentucky clay.
Like I'm biased, I'm biased, but
Oh no, I agree. That Carolina red dirt, there's nothing like it. I
absolutely.
It is a completely different track surface. But yeah, I started on like black farming dirt, then moved up into Indiana clay, which is it's clay in theory.
It's still pretty loose though, it's
Yeah, still pretty loose. And then a bunch of the tracks would get, I guess a couple tracks, they hauled in Kentucky clay, which is better, but not as good as Carolina red clay. So, yeah.
Yeah, and then the trouble is that even if they haul it in, you can't just let it sit. You have to do something with it pretty quickly.
Yeah.
Wasn't there a track that just let it sit in the infield for a season?
One of my previous home tracks, they hauled it in. They had Kentucky clay, someplace they were getting it from someplace that had apparently really good Kentucky clay. And they got a call in like November, like end of November, beginning of December, saying, hey, we got your clay, or we can fill your clay order right now. And they were expecting at the beginning of the season before, but they got on back orders for it, whatever. They had bigger things going on. They said, we can get your clay order now. If you don't take it now, it's going to be another year before we can get you any. Okay. So they hauled it up here. And when they got here, the guy who was in charge of it said, just dump it in the infield. And they're like, don't you want to spread it? Put it on, have us dump it on the track, and then you spread it and use the grader, do all the fun stuff to shape it. And he's like, nope, just dump it in the infield. We'll get it when the wintertime's done. Oh my God. The infield was a sandy, silty disaster. And, knowing Indiana winters with the amount of snow and rain that we got, everything mixed together. And then rather than just scooping it up and putting it on the track, they just pushed it outwards. No. And they got a bunch of the silt and sand. So there are parts of the track that there are these sand veins running through because it's on a creek bank, technically. And you'll have all this really nice hard pack track, and then all of a sudden you'll have a vein running through it, and the track will just completely fall apart. And it's like you're going over a pothole in Indiana that we're famous for. And like this big piece of clay will just peel up out of nowhere, and you'll have a hole. Yeah.
Ugh. Yeah, that's well, I guess it turns into the Rockingham or Darlington of the dirt tracks. Too much sand in the aggregate. But yeah, no, that's the thing that surprised me. Like dirt track racing, track prep is a science.
Oh
is
my
an
gosh.
absolute science. And
Tony Stewart is Einstein.
Yeah, indeed. Let's see, like outside of Millbridge, going to different types of dirt tracks. Like Andrew and I, we went to the Hoosier 100. So that's big, well taken care of.
Horse track.
Yeah, I mean it's massive. But then like when I moved to Pennsylvania, that's the kind of situation like you were talking about, having a bunch of tracks within an hour. I mean, I lived in Harrisburg, and we had Williams Grove, Sealands Grove, what was it? Landco, and a bunch of others that I just never got around to. But yeah, and all of them, you can tell, like, even apart from the size of the track, they all drive differently just because of the way they're prepped.
Yeah.
So it's to all of our listeners, I'd say don't knock it and don't take it for granted. It takes up running well at a dirt track and having a good show at a dirt track is more than just taking a car and running around in the mud. It is an art form and a science.
Oh yeah.
Another art form and science, late model racing. Down here in the southeast, and really all across the eastern part of the country, but especially down here, You'd be
Y'all
surprised
like your
how many.
fendered race cars. Jeez.
Yeah. Look, I like my fendered race cars. Okay, it means you can rub. Rubbing is racing. Just ask Michael McDowell. Anyways, so it's interesting how many drivers you see go back and forth between the highest levels of late model racing and in the three national touring series of NASCAR, and even the ARCA divisions. Josh Berry, he was racing at Daytona in the Xfinity series. He is a standout in the late model ranks, right? And still regularly runs late models. That's where he made his career, and being able to make that jump, I know we talk about the disconnect between short track racing and NASCAR these days, but it's interesting to see that at least in this corner of the country, it's still alive and well. Like how many development drivers go through the late model series like the Cars Tour or the Pro All Star Series.
I remember Josh Berry, I think last year won like the late model world national championship or something like that. He talked about on the Dale Jr. download.
Yeah, I think so. Yeah, because he drives for Dale Jr. in late models, yeah. But yeah, I mean, how many there are a lot of the driver development programs like KBM, and I think Drive for Diversity or Rev Racing, and a couple others.
Raja Caruth.
Yep. Yeah, a lot of them have late models and super late models as part of their ladder program, as part of their dedicated driver development program. So it's really interesting to see, how many people like that mixing of, you've got guys from, Hickory Speedway, guys from Caraway Speedway, guys from, guys from Bowman Gray, and then you've got the people from all over the country who are brought in by these driver development programs. It's a really interesting mixing pot, or melting pot. Wow, gotta get my idioms right. A melting pot of driving styles, driving backgrounds, and cultures. Which is why it's so great to go to these tracks and watch it, because sometimes, I mean, almost always, it's better than what's happening on the big tracks.
Oh,
The thing is just, I mean, think about it, the people we raced against in Grand Prix, right? A lot of them came from late models, and transitioned to road course racing really well, right? So it's there's a lot of cross pollination. Yeah, racing is racing, and racers are racers, and you give them something that can go fast, they'll make the most of it.
It's like I'm a big road racer now, and I've done a lot of road racing, but I started on the dirt oval, and I literally one weekend got the chance to go drive at Newcastle, having never driven before. I was like, okay. It's a race. I'll drive in it.
Yep.
Wait, right turns? Oh, interesting.
Yeah, when I was running the EV Grand Prix carts, we had an event. No one told us it was at an oval. I remember driving the van down there and pulling up and being like, wait a second, that's a quarter midget track. It was at Marion County Fairgrounds, and oh man, talk about taking something like a duck to water.
I can just imagine you pulling up and seeing the oval, and then realizing, being told, yeah, this all of a sudden, out of nowhere, like as soon as you get out of the van, somebody's gonna be like, wait, where's the flattened Scruggs coming from?
Oh yeah.
Why is there house music playing?
Is that a banjo? Yeah.
Battle faster?
Oh man.
Christian, you are so lucky I wasn't in map anymore when that race happened.
I don't think I'm the lucky one. Because I would have loved to have done battle with you. We would have put on a hell of a show. I think everyone else was lucky because they wouldn't have known what to do with the two of us.
One day I wish I was a Purdue student in that program, been like, okay, y'all, hold on.
Yeah, I mean that was Man, that was that track. That was a match made in heaven. That was what I do. I finished second in the first heat and first in the final race. So yeah, that was. I was happy with that weekend, but man, there's no feeling like it. Like most of our careers, or at least the most recent part of them, have been road course racing, right? But I think we all have that itch. There's something about tearing around a bull ring, just sliding the car or cart around, that I think you got to experience it. And once the bugs bit you, you can do other disciplines, but you're gonna come back to that at least once in a while.
It was interesting going back to the dirt race when I went back there. I mean, it wasn't a bull ring, it was a big track, but for karts, but it was the itch is definitely there, and I would say oval driving anyway versus horse racing, the car control that you need to do it is pretty insane. And that was I think why I got along with road course racing, because there were a lot of guys who didn't quite have the car control. Road course racing is kind of like a blunt force object that you're trying to control versus oval racing. You've got to have everything like exactly precise with your driving and the car. It is nowhere near as NASCAR as some people make it out to be, and NASCAR is nowhere near as NASCAR as some people make it out to be honest. So
Yeah, I think the big thing is with ovals, or I should start with road courses. With road courses, you might beat the guy in front of you by half a sec or behind you by half a second. In ovals, might be a few hundredths of a second.
yeah,
Yep.
yeah, I went back and it was so funny. I was driving for a friend of mine, and he had a buddy with him who he got into it, and he didn't tell his buddy. The friend of mine, I got him into it back when we were in high school, and we drove together, and it was so funny. He didn't tell his buddy that who I was. He just said, "Hey, this guy, he's done some racing before, just kind of seeing." And he wanted me to come down and help tutor him because he was still very young in his driving career, so he was making a lot of mistakes. And I was like, "Okay, cool, I'll help out." And my buddy wanted me to take his card out in the feature, so I'm like, "Okay." So I took his card out in the feature, and I come back in, and it was just such a great feeling to get back out there and be able to control the car like that. And it is the ultimate controlled chaos because you're trying to get it as close to the limit in between walls, And I came in second in the feature, which was okay. I was okay with that. And I came back in, and his buddy's like, "Dude, how did you do that?" And I'm like, a lot of seat time and a lot of concentration and practice. He's like,
Yeah.
"Oh man." A lot of seat time needed to get it right on an oval, man. There's just no substitute for it on an oval, besides having good tires.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. That's the thing about oval racing. Your setup is important. It's important on road course racing, but in road course racing, a good driver can make up for a poorly set up vehicle sometimes. But on ovals, just especially like the bigger ones, because of the length of the turns, how much time you spend cornering, you've gotta at least be close on your setup.
Yeah, it was. So to tell you, in dirt carts versus asphalt carts, in dirt carts, when we finally had the money to get scales, we were sitting on the scales. As soon as we got to the track, we'd set up our scale stand, get everything leveled, and we'd sit on the scales and work on the car, getting it set up to our baseline numbers. And it'd be like an hour at least before the race. We'd get there much earlier than that, but it'd be like an hour on the scales. And then in between races, if we had enough time, if we wanted to make a setup change, we'd be back on the scales, doing that setup change and double checking all the numbers and writing everything down. And every time we made a setup change, it was back to the scales. Now on asphalt, you'll scale. I have a general idea of where the cart is, and I'll scale before I go to a big race or something. But most of the time, I'm kind of winging it, like, just move the seat forward a little bit here, move these wheels out, and there's a lot more. And I'll maybe scale the kart 2 or 3 times a year if I have access to it, versus 2 or 3 times a night.
Yeah, especially as the track changes. You
Yeah.
gotta keep up.
Yeah. Yeah, the track changing is crazy. And tires. I said tires. Tires are absolutely the name of the game on oval racing, no matter what.
Yeah, and it's crazy. My my experience of dirt oval karting was basically non-existent. It was at Camp Motorsport, in like a regular like road course kart. Just it was a donut competition, and I wasn't doing donuts. I was trying to rip hot laps, and everyone was like, "What are you doing?" I'm like, "Seat time is seat time, guys." But yeah, my experience of like dirt racing was, oh yeah, they've got treaded tires, and then I met you, Corey.
Yeah,
You're
so
like, oh no, we haven't run on treaded tires in like a decade.
decades, yeah. Dirt karting, no treaded tires. It's all slicks. And the tire game, that's why I got out of dirt racing, to be honest, is the tire game. I couldn't afford, with the budget I had, I couldn't afford to play anymore. Because with asphalt racing, for instance, while there are some other areas we may spend a little bit more money in, like, I don't want to say engines, but maybe getting newer engines all the time. I don't know. We don't spend as much asphalt, but we get a set of tires. It's normally our sizes, our spec, and our compounds are spec compounds, and we mount them up and we run with them. That's it. And then you run them till they're worn out, and then you get more tires. Dirt, you wouldn't be caught dead competitively if you didn't go with, I would say, a minimum of 3 sets for just a club race. And these are all, you might have a spec compound. Some tracks had spec tires, some didn't, but you would show up with 3 sets, and to borrow the term from Days of Thunder, match perfect and staggered special.
Rollout.
And they would be cut tires, is what we call them. So put them on the tire lathe and cut them down to basically like the last little bit of rubber that's on them before the cords. And you'd have them profiled to whatever track you were running on. So if it was a real short track, you might profile the shoulders and the whole overall shape of the tire differently than, say, if you're running on a 5th or 6th mile track versus a 1/3 of a mile track or a 10th mile track, everything's different. And
Is that
set of tires
just for camber, or?
Well, no, we weren't even getting to the camber yet. That was just how the side load on the tires. Like, somebody figured out a long time ago to use all of the tire. And like, for instance, at some of the big tracks we went to, we would basically cut the shoulders off of the tires completely and roll over onto the sidewalls almost to the rims. And over on the logos of the tires, and that was faster than having any kind of a shoulder on it. So, yeah, it was crazy. And then all the prepping with tires, all the chemicals that went into it.
Yeah,
Oh
you don't
my
have to
God.
worry about sidewall flex if you don't have a sidewall.
Exactly. But yeah, and then working with the chemicals, not only did you have to be an engineer, you need to be a chemist, or at least amateur engineer and amateur chemist to do all this.
What you really need is to follow OSHA, because they're the guys out there, tire soaking and then grabbing a cheeseburger from the track, the hot dog stand without washing their hands. You're like, do you know what you just put in your mouth?
I'm gonna tell you a story, both of you, since you're both engineers, and to a certain extent working with chemicals. A buddy of mine, I won't say which, he was doing tire prep, and he had a really good tire program. That was the one thing I loved, his tire program. He was able to make use of stuff, if he didn't have a whole lot of money, he could still make it work. So I always liked him taking care of the tire program when I could. But he got done prepping tires with God knows what in his prep. And he gets ready, and he needed a new pair of race gloves. So I had like a pair of race gloves that I got as a spare set, because he'd been using just like some lawn and garden stuff. So I gave him my pair of race gloves, and they were brand new. He comes in after that race, and he found out he didn't wash his hands after his tire prep, and he'd eaten through the leather palms.
Yeet.
And he's like, "Hey, these gloves didn't work out so well." And I'm like, "Those were brand new, bud." And I look, and his fingers and his palms have eaten through the leather, and I'm like, "Oh, oh, oh, oh." Yeah.
Yeah, don't call the EPA, because if they ever sample a dirt track, it's all over.
Every dirt track is now a super fun site.
Yep.
Oh my God, if they took one sample from whatever water supply that was close by, because almost always a dirt track is next to a creek or some reservoir, so they could take water from that to water it down with. If they ever took a sample, oh boy. Yeah, it's bad. I hope nobody out there listening to this program is from the EPA. If you are, just disregard
We're
us.
joking.
We're joking.
We're joking. Yeah,
Yeah,
we're joking.
We have never actually engaged in dangerous tire prep activities. Now move along. Thank you.
And, that's the thing. Our collective mentor. That's one of the things I appreciated about learning from him, and you as well, Corey. Is that there was a no prep policy. Once y'all realized what was in it,
Yeah.
that so it card racing with y'all and under your banner, we never used it. So that's one thing I appreciate.
Yeah.
Helps us all sleep at night.
He wouldn't sell it, and it was a moral decision.
Yeah.
He wouldn't sell it, and I know we lost a lot of business for people, because we could have easily carried some of the, just a couple of the big name brand tire preps and sold it gallons at a time easily. But he wouldn't sell it, and I know that left a lot of people not wanting to come buy stuff from us. But he knew the dangers, and I commend him on that. That's one thing, and that's, he talked me out of a lot of dirt racing stuff because of the prep. WD-40 has happened on tires on occasion to keep them over winter, but that's probably the least, concerning.
And it'll smell nice.
Yeah. Another
Man,
funny
you really
story
are
that
an
involves tire prep and smelling nice, for instance. I'm going to tell you two of the big tire preps when prep really first started to show up here on the dirt were, there was one called Atomic Punch, that it was red and it looked like a, Hawaiian Punch or something. And it smelled like it. It smelled amazing. They put scenty, nice stuff in it to make it smell good. And then the other was goat pee. I think it started out as real goat pee at first, and then it became just a chemical mix of yellow chemicals.
Guys, racers are desperate.
Goat pee's very acidic.
We know this, but in case you forget, we're desperate for grip.
So, yeah, it was funny. The Atomic Punch, the point of Atomic Punch, I think, the reason it smelled so good and looked like fruit punch was there were tracks that had a no prep policy. They were trying to fight it so people could smuggle it in easily. They wouldn't carry it as tire prep. They'd just put it in their cooler with all their stuff, but they'd have the bottle marked special or something. So I think that was part of it. And also it was fun. But I swear, this is an absolutely true story, guys. So hot takes coming up right here. We were at a dirt track that was relatively new to us. We'd only been there a couple times. It was the kid who got started. He started a year before I did, and his dad was friends with my grandfather. So we traveled to races together quite a bit. We kind of convoyed. And we are at this track, and he went and grabbed a hamburger, and it was a horrible track hamburger because, dirt track food, most dirt tracks, the food is not great. And he gets this hamburger. He's like, oh, this is disgusting. I need to wash it down. And he literally brought Hawaiian Punch with him, but he sat it down on his little fold-out work table next to his Atomic Punch bottle.
No.
And he picks the Atomic Punch bottle up and takes a big swig, and immediately just the look on his face and the puking that happened, it was like a water hose or a fire hose. Just
He wasn't ready.
he wasn't. It was.
He needs some milk.
That's what his dad told him.
I really, really question bringing a drink that looks like your tire prep to the track.
All right, Andrew, you and I both know we've snuck some things past tech inspection. So like, this isn't. I mean, okay, yeah, it is worse, but it's not that far fetched.
So yeah, that was like, at that point, my grandfather's like, first of all, we're not using that prep. We're gonna find something that actually is prep. Like, second of all, don't be that guy. It's like, yes, sir. Oh my gosh. I really hope he doesn't have cancer now. I haven't talked to him in a long time.
Oh wow.
Because those are carcinogens and all kinds of crap in that stuff. It's bad.
Yeah.
I mean, paint thinner, creosote, you name it. It's been in there. Diesel fuel. I can't even begin to think about acetone. All these things. Those are just some of the basic things I can think of.
All right, Corey, I got a question.
Okay.
Have you ever been so desperate for grip that you started finding whatever you could soak your tires in and soak them in it? Chain lube. Let's see.
Yes.
Let's see. Clutch fluid.
Doesn't work.
Yeah. I think there's this. I remember a specific weekend where you were there and I hit that point. I was like, I need something. That's the only time. So I take back my statement that I've never done it. That's the only time.
I've literally tested every chemical we had in our home shop, and to certain varying degrees of success. Actually, a funny thing, Windex is a great way if you need to clean. That was the other thing. We cleaned our tires like religiously. Like, our tires were cleaner than most asphalt drivers. We'd get special squeegees and buckets, and we'd have special tire cleaning compound. But Windex was a great cleaning compound that would actually make the rubber nice and sticky. So yeah, that was fun.
Note to self: bring Windex to racetrack.
Discovered that by accident. I had a cousin come to the racetrack with me, and he went to clean the tires, and he couldn't figure out what our tire cleaner was. And at the time, we were just using, I think, like soapy water in a bucket because we were low budget. And we had a thing of Windex for cleaning my face shield or cleaning the card off. And he just dumped some of that in the bucket with it, or sprayed the tires down with it, then scrubbed them. Like, man, these are really clean and really sticky. What did you do? And he's like, oh, I used Windex. I'm like, writing that down. Oh, yeah, it's crazy. It's in the category of ways to, I wouldn't say cheat, but innovate.
We live in the gray area.
It's not
on the
cheating if
darker
it ain't
side.
the rule book.
Yeah. We are why the rule book exists.
Yeah. Yeah, it's we're part of the reason why, but yeah, dirt racing, there's a lot of innovation. Yeah. Now, as we're talking about big car racing, you guys, you're talking about late models and the connection to NASCAR, which I think is great that there's still a connection. I have to get on my little soapbox here and have my little open wheel rant.
Oh boy.
Being from Indiana, And knowing the open wheel culture we have here, there's definitely a connection between the dirt track guys and IndyCar. Absolutely zero anymore. Indiana being in the heart of our favorite type of racing, sprint car racing, and the proper form of dirt racing. But yeah, being in Indiana, being a sprint car fan, and now, tuning into the Indy 500 and seeing a single sprint car guy involved. That sucks. I know it's completely different racing now than it was back in the 60s, but yeah, there's no carryover. I think our last hope would have been, I think the last guy, Clausen, Chris Wyndham.
Yeah.
He was in the Freedom 100 a couple of years ago.
Oh, yeah, that was a rough week for him.
That was when he had the terrible, horrible, no good, very bad week.
Yeah.
It was like, dude, I know you want to do like every race this week, but you might just want to sit this week out.
I think he wrecked at every race.
Yeah.
And I don't know how many of those were his fault.
He blew a tire out during the Hoosier 100 and had a spectacular rollover. Christian, you and I saw that one in person.
Yeah. Live and in color.
Yeah. The Freedom 100, he was doing okay. I mean, it was lap 1 coming to turn, but he got caught up in somebody else's mistake and ended up in the fence and was almost a lot more spectacular.
In the fence, not in the wall, in the actual fence.
Yes.
Yeah.
Then I heard something broke on the car at IRP, and he went into the wall in like qualifying or something.
See, that's one of those where I'm like, I would put myself on a concussion protocol at that point. It's like, okay, I think we need to call it. But if that's your livelihood, I get why.
I think he also crashed at Anderson. So
I don't remember. Either way, if there was a way to enter the anti-lottery, Chris Wyndham entered it that week.
Yeah.
He created it.
And that was our last real hope, like our last sprint car guy. And unfortunately, I don't know if we're going to get anyone else after that, because I know there's been some people say in high positions say some mean things about that. And it was, a lot of stuff that wasn't his fault happened.
Yeah.
But apparently, even if you get caught in a wreck that's not your fault and you go into the fence at Indy on lap 1, people are still like, no, you don't belong here. So that sucks. But
let's see. Sage Karam. How many times has he been in the wall in lap 1?
Don't even get me started on that guy.
I'm just saying.
Yeah, Sage. Oh boy. But yeah, it's just this big disconnect. So it seems like we have a lot of people getting into the dirt track scene, and the goal now is, like, I would say the goal for most sprint car drivers is World of Outlaws.
Yeah.
Yep.
It is arguably the most competitive, probably the highest funded level of dirt track racing, open wheel dirt track racing in the United States, if not the world.
Don't let USAC hear you say that.
Okay, so I am a sucker for USAC non-wing sprint cars. It's just an Indiana tradition, y'all. And Silver Crown, midgets, sprint cars, anything without wings is a real tradition here. And I see that like, oh yeah, that's sleek, that's nice. But World of Outlaws is faster, and has more money involved, and has the bigger stars. I'd say, the most stars at one time. So yeah, it is a shame, but it's also kind of cool to see that there is this standalone professional world of dirt track racing that doesn't require any approval from the asphalt ranks, so to speak.
It really is outlaw racing.
Yeah. I was watching a documentary that NOS Energy did about, was it Sheldon Hodenshield? I probably butchered his last name. But he's running, I think at some point might still be running the NOS car in World of Outlaws, and talking about getting into that, and it was so funny. At one point, it was either him or one of his crew members called people who run asphalt fairies.
Here we at Off Camber Karting do not condone the use of slurs to refer to any member of any part of the racing community.
No,
That said, this was a quote, a direct quote,
exactly.
and we just like you all to keep that in mind. Thank you.
I kid you not. So I love dirt track racing. I don't know if I'll ever go back to dirt track racing full time, but I absolutely love it. And I love going to dirt track races. But my career has been mainly in asphalt now. And when I was first getting the asphalt, I was doing a street event every year. And we had a dirt race the night before. So we would race on, I guess it was night of. So it was a 2-day event for this street event, but you could show up on Sunday, and that was when the features were. You just start towards the back. So we raced Saturday night at this dirt track event, which was a points race. And then we get done and we convert the car over, our dirt car, to run on asphalt. And I converted the car over to run on asphalt, and I showed up, and my shoes are, I blew them off with an air gun. Still dirty. You can tell I'm a dirt racer. I don't wear, got a jacket. And 2 different people used dirt track slurs against me. 2 different people. One person within the organization, kind of half-heartedly doing it, just like, oh, you dirt devils or whatever. I'm like, okay, whatever. And then some kid bangs into me with a scooter, this like 8-year-old kid, and he looks down at my shoes, and he's got on this really nice European race suit, and he's like, watch out where you're going, dirt dog. And I'm like, boy, where are your parents? Never mind. They probably say the same thing. So we don't condone the use of these slurs. However, when I heard that from that documentary, I'm like, I had that kind of like, yeah, there's one for the team.
Well, yeah, man. It's long story short, support your local short track racers, please.
Yeah.
Those are some hard working, fix their own car kind of people, and we need more of that in racing these days.
Yeah, it's one of the few forms, I think, of amateur motorsports that is surviving and in some cases thriving, because we're kind of dying off with amateur motorsports in a lot of categories, especially in the road race stuff. So yeah, support your local short track racers, whether they be cars, definitely, because they're going out there and doing it because they absolutely freaking love to do it.
Yep. It's for the love of the art.
Yep.
Well, guys, want to go ahead and wrap it up?
Yeah. Andrew, what do you got to say? You need some closing.
Oh, I'm closing now.
Yeah, well, you can close this one. How about that? Or you can say some closing statement. We'll have everyone say some closing statements, since this is the free form, unfiltered.
Okay. Well, thanks for listening, guys. This was the short track episode of the Off Camber Karting podcast. We hope you enjoyed. Like and subscribe. Da 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 da.
Yeah. So, as Andrew said, hope you guys had a good time this week. Maybe we'll do some...
I almost went to Indiana Jones, but I had to change
I
it
know.
for a copyright strike.
Don't get sued. Oh. That's for another show, but yeah, so yep, everyone out there, I hope you guys enjoyed this. If you like it, listen, hit that like button on YouTube. Obviously, if you're listening on Anchor FM, have a good one. And remember to keep on keeping on, and keep it on all fours. Have a nice one. Bye.
Yeah.